SwayamPrabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Dear students, you are welcome in this class. I am Dr. Dinesh Kumar, Principal Scientist from Division of Agronomy, ICAR, Indian Agricultural Research Institute, Pusa Campus, New Delhi. This lecture pertains to the course Agronomy of Oilseed, Fiber and Sugar Crops, and title of the lecture is Nutrient, Water and Weed Management in Cotton Crop. The learning objectives of this lecture are to get acquainted with nutrient and water management practices in cotton crop and also to detail the weeds and weed management practices in cotton crop. Some glossary: natural fiber. Fiber is considered as natural if it is made from natural materials that can be turned into clothing without first undergoing industrial processes. So mostly the fibers which are obtained directly from plants or animals are your natural fibers. Like from plants you can have cotton, wool from animals, linen from plant, hemp and silk, etc. Silk you can get from worms. So these are actually natural fibers, and some are synthetic fibers that are produced in industry. Seed cotton means unginned or picked cotton, means it includes seed plus lint or fiber. Then upland cotton, originally used to refer to cotton grown on raised lands not prone to flooding. That was upland cotton, but American cotton is also called as upland cotton, which is Gossypium hirsutum. Cotton seeds. Seeds removed from fiber by the gin that are then collected and sold. Short fibers, linters that the gin could not remove remain attached to the cotton seeds. So normally there are two kinds of fiber. One is long fiber, which are lint, and some short hairs or short fibers are still remaining attached to the seed. That is known as fuzz, F-U-Z-Z, fuzz. Cellulose, polymer that makes up cotton fibers. So cotton fibers are almost 100% cellulose and they are single celled. Defoliant, a harvest aid, material applied to the cotton plant to accelerate leaf drop in preparation for harvest. So sometimes the removal of leaf is required for harvesting of cotton, particularly in mechanized ways, and then you need to use certain defoliants to remove foliage. So defoliation is loss of leaves, maybe prematurely or naturally. Herbicide, a material that is used to kill weeds, applied as prior to planting plus incorporated prior to emergence and after plant emergence. So you can have three situations. One is it is incorporated into the soil before the sowing or planting of the crop, and then it can be applied before the germination of the crop, pre-emergence, and after the germination of the crop when foliage is there on the plant, then it will be post-emergence. Label, a legally binding document affixed to every pesticide container outlining the product's constituents, amount of active ingredient and primary uses. So all the details of the pesticides are mentioned on a paper, you can call it paper, which is wrapped around the bottle or put on the bag. That is your label. Parasite, an organism that lives wholly off and often feeds within another organism, that is host. Plant growth regulator, a substance applied to cotton plants or maybe for other plants that affect growth or aging. Terminal, the dominant upper main stem part of a cotton plant containing 3 to 4 expanding leaves and developing square. Now we go to the nutrient management. So what happens when we go for cultivation of crop continuously? A lot of nutrients are removed by the crop and there will be shortage of nutrients in the soil. That should be compensated and that should be replaced when you are going to grow another crop. So nutrient management is very, very important, And in this case, emphasis should be given on balanced fertilization and also on the integrated nutrient management. So here, cotton actually remove large quantities of nutrients from soil, and your soils can remain exhausted of nutrient. Then you need to supplement the nutrients that have been depleted from the soil. So external supply of nutrient is surely needed to resupply these nutrients, and this should meet out the whole requirement of the nutrients for the crop. And crop should not face any deficiency of nutrients. Sometimes there can be hidden deficiency of nutrient that should also be avoided. Let us discuss the deficiency symptoms of various nutrients in cotton. So first we start the deficiency of nitrogen in cotton crop. So there will be stunted growth of the cotton plant, and thin stems will be there, and bright red pigmentation develop on lower part of the stem. So nitrogen deficiency in cotton, for that matter in other crops also, happens on the older leaves, and where chlorosis of the leaf can happen, and it can affect the overall development of the plant, and then entire plant exhibits a light green appearance. Younger leaves is smaller and number of branches reduce. If number of branching is reducing, that means your yield attribute is declining. Mobile in plants, this nitrogen, and it can be rapidly translocated to the younger shoots. So therefore deficiency happens in lower parts. And interestingly, nitrogen is also mobile in soil. Mostly in the form of nitrate, it can mobilize from one place to another place. Deficiency symptoms appear primarily on the older leaves and become more severe with time. If deficiency of nitrogen continues continuously, then the symptoms can go very severe. Initially, all leaves become pale green, then yellow, and finally brown necrosis can happen, usually in interveinal areas. Eventually, the affected leaves die and fall off early. So you can see nitrogen deficiency symptoms on the right side. Particularly, you see the lower picture. The complete yellowness of the leaf has happened, or kind of uniform chlorosis is happening on lower leaves. Now, what are the chances where it occurs? Soils having low organic matter, you will find nitrogen deficiency, because organic matter contains proteins. Proteins are made up of amino acids, and these amino acids contain nitrogen. So overall, organic matter has nitrogen, which supplies nutrients, or nitrogen particularly. If we are short of organic matter in the soil, definitely we are short of nitrogen in the soil. So soils which are low in organic matter will be low in nitrogen. And light texture sandy soils are also low in nitrogen, mainly because of leaching. In these soils, the pore space size is larger. Upon rainfall or irrigation, significant quantity of nutrients or nitrogen can be lost by leaching. Soils exhausted by intercropping and waterlogging may also be deficient in nitrogen. As we know, if we are taking many crops, particularly cereal crops, then lot of quantities of nitrogen are removed by those crops and soil get deficiency. So intensive cropping can also result in reduced supply of nitrogen in soil. And most importantly, if waterlogging happens for 1 month, 2 months or so, then these nitrates will be converted into nitrogen. The process is called as denitrification. Due to denitrification, there will be loss of nitrogen in the form of N2 or N2O, or oxides of nitrogen. Acid soils having pH below 6 or alkaline soils having pH more than 8. Particularly in alkaline soils, the nitrogen losses are more in the form of ammonia volatilization. If you go for surface application of urea in such kind of soils and pH is high, temperature is also high, then there will be significant losses of ammonia in the form of volatilization. Now next, let us check for the phosphorus deficiency symptoms in cotton. So plants are stunted and have very short, thin stems. Leaves are small in size with dark green color. So here it is interesting fact that if you apply excess nitrogen, then the color of the leaves will become dark green. If there is short of phosphorus, then also you will get green color or dark green color of the leaves, lower leaves color. So sometimes confusion happens. But here in case of phosphorus deficiency, you will get red discoloration. Some pink kind of spots or pigments can be seen on the leaves in case of phosphorus deficiency. Branches reduce, and you can see on the right side this reddening of the leaves. They are darker green in color, but pigmentation is happening. Certain anthocyanins gets accumulated and which are red or pink in color. This is typical deficiency symptom of phosphorus in cotton. Ball formation is also retarded, causing low yields, mainly because of reduction in photosynthesis. In these leaves, there will be less photosynthesis and dry matter production will be limited, because of which ball formation as well as ball filling will be affected. And of course, the phosphorus is mobile in the plant system and its deficiency symptoms will happen on older leaves or older tissues, and it will also delay the maturity. The deficiency of phosphorus delays maturity. Now let us see the occurrence of phosphorus deficiency. As in case of nitrogen, same is the case of phosphorus also, where certain proteins also contain phosphorus. So therefore 50% phosphorus in soil on an average is in organic form. If we have organic matter quantities less in the soil, that means we will have less supply of phosphorus from organic matter, because lastly this organic matter will decompose and after mineralization it will release phosphorus and other minerals. So therefore less organic matter means less mineralized phosphorus. And then alkaline and calcareous soils, the conversion of water soluble phosphate happens in the form of dicalcium phosphate, tricalcium phosphate, and finally it can go up to the octacalcium phosphate, which is also known as apatite. So this apatite is insoluble in water, it is also insoluble in citrate. So in alkaline soil there will be more fixation of phosphorus. Similarly, if soils are saline or soils are acid also, in acid soils the phosphorus will get fixed with iron and aluminum, etc. And then the availability of phosphorus is reduced. It is chemically bound at lower pH, particularly in the form of aluminum phosphates. So acid soils and highly weathered soils, you can have phosphorus deficiency, and topsoil has been removed by erosion. Alkaline soil having pH between 7.5 to 8.5. So these are the conditions where the deficiency of phosphorus occurs in soil. And another case of losing the phosphorus from soil is by erosion. The phosphorus from soil can be lost by erosion, but it is generally not lost by leaching, etc., because there is little phosphate form which is in water soluble form, because it is immediately converted into insoluble forms in soil. Now coming to the potassium deficiency, delayed maturity, growth is retarded and number of flowers reduce, number of size of ball decrease and causing low yield and quality. So definitely the deficiency of potassium leads to reduced value of yield attributes, reduced growth, and subsequently it will result in reduced yield also. And not only this, the deficiency of potassium also leads to reduced quality of the product. Premature crop senescence can happen, rapidly translocated from older to younger leaves. Potassium can be easily translocated to new parts or new tissues from the older parts, because it is translocated, it is mobile nutrient in the plant system. Therefore, deficiency comes on the lower leaves. So what are deficiency symptoms? Pale yellow interveinal chlorosis on older leaves. Pale yellow chlorosis turns into pale brown, and necrosis is spreading from leaf edges. This is interesting fact that here the death of tissues will happen in case of potassium deficiency. If a particular tissue or leaf or part of the plant is damaged due to K deficiency and then you apply extra quantity of potassium, it will not recover back, it will not go back to its original state. So therefore, it can be a severe loss. If deficiency is severe, necrosis advances rapidly into interveinal areas, and interveinal areas turning bronze and necrotic and spreading from margins. And students can remember the typical symptom of potassium deficiency is marginal firing and tip burning. You can remember marginal firing and tip burning are the typical symptom. Marginal firing here means the margins of the leaves. This is the part which is known as margin, the edges of the leaf. So here you can see firing means it will turn brown. Now initially it is yellow, but it will turn brown. And tip burning, tip is this part. So this part. So burning means some kind of brown color will be there, and these are dead tissues. Now occurrence of potassium deficiency, soils formed from parent material low in potassium. Soil which was formed from the minerals or rocks, they already had very low content of the potassium, and then soil developed from such kind of rocks and minerals will surely have low levels of potassium in it. Light texture soils where K leached by heavy rainfall or irrigation. Many times potassium leaching happens in soils, particularly when they are light textured sandy soils and water is applied or irrigation or rainfall occurs, and then potassium leaching will be there. Potassium is very much mobile in the soil also. And soils low in organic matter, wide sodium to potassium ratio or wide magnesium to potassium ratio, wide calcium to potassium ratio, or acid soils having pH less than 6. So these are the conditions where potassium deficiency is experienced. Now coming to the magnesium deficiency. Magnesium is also important element which is secondary nutrient in case of plant nutrition. So actually there are three nutrients which are called as secondary nutrients: calcium, magnesium and sulfur. All three are necessary, essential. Coming back to magnesium, it is part of the chlorophyll molecule. You cannot have chlorophyll molecule if magnesium is not there. If there is no magnesium, no chlorophyll, then greenness of the plant will not be there. So it is necessary for photosynthesis. So what happens in deficiency? Plants are stunted, thin and short stems. Yields of seeds and fibers are reduced. Early, fairly mobile in the plant system. Therefore, deficiency symptom will come initially on the lower leaves. So under reduced supply, it is mobilized from older to the younger parts, and thus the deficiency comes on older parts. Old leaves become purple to red in color, reddish purple in interveinal tissues, typical symptoms, and leaving veins green and prominent. Affected leaves may die drop. So you can see the magnesium deficiency symptoms in the interveinal areas. You see the reddish color, see very clearly. These are magnesium deficiency symptoms in cotton, and interestingly you can see that the veins remain green in this case. Now occurrence of magnesium deficiency, what conditions or what kind of soils one can experience magnesium deficiency? Acid sandy soils that have been leached by heavy rainfall, peat and muck soils low in total magnesium. So normally acid soils are formed in heavy rainfall air where certain salts are leached down from the soil. Like calcium and magnesium leaching can happen, and then the soils are deficient in magnesium. Soils having higher quantity of calcium or potassium. So in this case there can be deficiency of magnesium. Soils derived from parent material that is inherently low in magnesium. Under those conditions also we will have magnesium deficiency. And also in acid soils having pH less than 6.5 or alkaline soils having pH more than 8.5, we can have deficiency of magnesium. Soils fertilized with high quantity of potassium fertilizers will also show magnesium deficiency. Now next important element is sulfur, and let us see the role of the sulfur. Role of sulfur is very, very important because it is part of essential amino acids, certain essential amino acids and proteins. So necessary for protein formation, necessary for chlorophyll formation also, and it helps in the improvement of quality. So deficiency symptoms: plants are stunted and stems are short and thin, number of branches reduced, fewer flowers and balls, lint and seed yields decreased, and it is basically immobile nutrient in plants. So therefore deficiency symptom in cotton plant happens on the younger leaves. or young tissues. So what happens, initially the entire plant appears pale green. Later pale green youngest leaves turn pale yellow. Uniform paleness appears on entire leaf, affecting both veins and interveinal tissues uniformly. So you can see uniform chlorosis is symptom of sulfur deficiency. Similarly, uniform chlorosis is the symptom of nitrogen deficiency. So how can we make a difference between sulfur deficiency and nitrogen deficiency? So it is very easy, because nitrogen deficiency will come on lower leaves and sulfur deficiency will come on upper leaves. Now you can see on the upper leaves, the top leaves here, they are yellow in color in cotton, and you can see on the second picture the yellowness of the leaf, the yellowing or chlorosis or greening of the leaves. Now occurrence of sulfur deficiency, soils which are low in organic matter, light texture sandy soils, because the sulfate is very susceptible for leaching. Whenever you apply sulfur in soil, the plant uptake form is sulfate. It has to be converted into sulfate if it is to be utilized by the plant. Suppose you have applied sulfur, it takes 1 month time to convert it into sulfate, and then the sulfate which is formed is liable to be leached down. So leaching of sulfate happens, because of which one can have deficiency of sulfate in the soil, and it happens more frequently in sandy soils where leaching losses are more. So light texture sandy soils that have been leached down by heavy rainfall or excess irrigation, you can have sulfur deficiency. And then is soil exhausted by the continuous cropping and intensive cropping. If you are taking cereal crops and also sometimes oilseeds crop, they remove large quantity of phosphorus. The requirement or uptake of phosphorus is almost similar to sulfur. So they also take up large quantity of sulfur. Acid soils having pH below 6, one can have deficiency of sulfur. Now we go to the iron deficiency. Iron is very important plant nutrient which is essential for plant growth. So what happens if we have iron deficiency in soil? Poor growth and reduced yields, immobile in plants. So as you know, this iron is immobile in plant and it cannot be easily translocated from lower parts or lower leaves to the upper leaves. So therefore the deficiency symptoms of iron happens in the younger leaves. Initially younger leaves are pale green to pale yellow, and then interveinal chlorosis in young leaves. So that is the difference between sulfur and iron deficiency. Under both you will have chlorosis of the younger leaves, but in case of sulfur deficiency the veins also become yellow, but in case of iron deficiency veins will remain green. The interveinal area will have chlorosis or yellowness in case of iron deficiency. So pale yellow chlorosis in interveinal tissues, leaving veins dark green. So here in iron deficiency you will have dark green veins. Prolonged short supply, pale yellow leaves turn dark yellow with faded veins. Severely deficient leaves turn almost white. So necrosis happens. When your leaf of cotton, younger leaves turn white in color, it is most typical deficiency symptoms and sure deficiency of iron in cotton crop, and it cannot recover back. Now you can see the iron deficiency symptoms in the picture here. On the left side you can see first picture here. The younger leaves are affected first, they are yellow in color, and you can see a close-up of such kind of leaves. You can see the veins are green, these areas are green, even sub-veins are also green. These kind of veins are green, and interveinal area means area between two veins is interveinal area. This area is yellow. So this is typical deficiency symptoms of iron in cotton. Now occurrence of iron deficiency. What are the soil conditions where one can find the iron deficiency? So sandy soils are really poor in iron, and you can have more deficiency in sandy soils compared to clay or heavy texture soils, as inherently sandy soils contain less amount of nitrate, iron. Alkaline and calcareous soils also, where solubility of iron is very low. So alkaline soils where pH is high or calcareous soils we usually face iron deficiency. Peat and muck soils where organic matter binds up with iron and reduces availability. Acid soils with excessively high levels of soluble zinc, manganese, copper or nickel that can hinder uptake of iron despite high availability, and alkaline soils where pH is more than 7.5. So under these conditions iron deficiency occurs. Now see the zinc deficiency symptoms in cotton. Growth of plants adversely affected and plants are stunted. Stunted plants means their height is short. Reduced photosynthesis and carbonic anhydrase activity and chlorophyll concentration in plants is reduced. And you know, if the chlorophyll concentration in plant is reduced, then definitely there will be reduction in the photosynthesis or carbon assimilation. That means less carbohydrates will be produced, and if less carbohydrates are produced, that means less dry matter production. If there is no sufficient dry matter production, that means there will not be growth, there will not be further branching, there will not be further formation of the leaves or formation of squares, flowers, and overall several yield attributes will be affected, and also the quality of the product can also be affected, and both will be reduced in case of zinc deficiency. Short and thin stems will be there. There are weaker stems and smaller size of leaves and lower number of flowers and balls and poor yields. So therefore, zinc deficiency is getting attention of the scientists, particularly soil scientists and agronomists, that must be corrected. Zinc is actually partly mobile in the plant, and deficiency first appear on the middle leaves. The central leaves you can have deficiency neither on the top leaves nor on the bottom leaves, but on the middle leaves you can have deficiency symptoms of zinc. And what happens? Intervenal chlorosis or mottling between secondary veins. So you can see here the intervenal chlorosis is happening, and clear-cut yellow color of the leaf you can see in the intervenal areas. These are typical zinc deficiency symptoms in the cotton crop. And also there is reduced size of younger leaves, and leaves are malformed and produce rosette appearance at top of the shoot. Rosette appearance means leaves are making a club kind of structure. They are accumulated, they are coming close to each other, rosette appearance. Now occurrence of zinc deficiency, it is occurrence of zinc deficiency. What are the conditions where you find zinc deficiency? Least light sandy soils where zinc is low, alkaline and calcareous soils one can have zinc deficiency, recently leveled soils where subsoil exposed to cultivation, soil in which high rates of phosphorus fertilizers are used, there you can find the zinc deficiency. What happens actually? Phosphorus and zinc have antagonistic relationship. One can affect the availability of the other adversely. If phosphorus and zinc are at right proportion in the soil, then they have beneficial effect. They have synergistic effect on the plant growth. One will encourage the uptake and utilization of the other. But sometimes what happens, their ratios get disturbed in the soil. There may be excess of phosphorus. Unnecessarily there can be excess of phosphorus and there will be less zinc. So under these conditions, zinc deficiency is bound to happen, and it can happen other way around also. One farmer can use excess doses of zinc and phosphorus levels were comparatively low. So in this case, the phosphorus availability will be adversely affected by excess level of zinc. So therefore, it is easy to understand that zinc and phosphorus have antagonistic reactions in soil. So soils in which high rates of P fertilizers are used, one will definitely have zinc deficiency in the soil. And zinc deficiency can also happen in acid soils with pH less than 5 or alkaline soils where pH is more than 7.5. As you might be knowing, acid soil means soil where pH is less than 7 normally, and alkaline soil means soil where pH is more than 7. Now, how to manage these nutrients? Let us discuss nitrogen management. Definitely nitrogen management is a star nutrient in cotton production or other crops production. So, during the early stages of crop growth, say up to pre-bloom, nitrogen mainly accumulates in the leaf, and at later stages during the bole set, nitrogen is accumulated in the cotton seed. So, it goes to different parts of the plant, it also goes to roots, it also goes to shoot, branches and flowers and boughs. So, cotton seed is high in protein and contains about 4% nitrogen. Its deficiency has a negative effect on the number of leaves and fruits formed, thereby reducing the squaring and flowering periods. So, overall you can see it affects the growth and development of the cotton plant in many ways. Nitrogen management is more complicated in cotton than in most other field crops. Really, here there are a lot of complexities involved in the management of nitrogen. Because cotton is a long duration crop, first thing, and overlapping of the growth stages also happen, that makes it difficult to manage the nitrogen. So, you can see the indeterminate growth habit of cotton is also there, long duration, maybe for 6 months of nitrogen uptake, and then it becomes quite difficult when to apply the nitrogen. And nitrogen transformation and losses during above time may happen, and differences in yield potential of cultivars, and also differences are there at the species level of Gossypium. Complex genotype and environmental interaction. Environmental factors like temperature, your moisture, humidity, all can interact with the genotype, and they can influence the growth and also the nitrogen requirement of the cotton crop. So, excess nitrogen fertilization results in prolonged vegetative growth and food forms and delays harvest. So, this is quite interesting that if you apply excess dose of nitrogen, it delays the maturity, means the duration of the crop becomes longer, and it will also result in darker green color, which will invite more invasion by insect, pests and diseases. So, it is never advisable to go for excess application of nitrogen. Although there is universal response to nitrogen application, its use efficiency varies with species, soils and agroclimatic conditions and crop management. So, definitely the use efficiency is of concern, which is quite low in case of cotton also, and scientists have tried to increase the nitrogen use efficiency of this crop. In general, agronomic nitrogen use efficiency between 11 and 13 kg seed cotton per kg nitrogen is ideal actually. However, in India, response ranges from 6 to 13 kg seed cotton per kg with a higher response under rain-fed conditions. So, in this case, we can see the range of nitrogen use efficiency is 6 to 13 kg seed cotton per kg. It must be increased by different ways. We can make alterations or improvements in cultural practices. We can make changes or alteration in fertilizer, materials, and up to some extent we should manipulate the weather or climatic parameters so as to improve it. Now, in general, upland cotton varieties and hybrids respond better to higher doses of nitrogen as compared to Asiatic cotton like Gossypium arboreum and Gossypium herbaceum cultivars. Irrigated cotton responds to 100 to 150 kg nitrogen per hectare, whereas 60 to 100 kg per hectare is optimum for cotton varieties grown in assured rainfall areas. Response beyond 60 kg nitrogen per hectare is seldom obtained in rain-fed cotton grown on marginal soil. So, you can see the nitrogen application rates are varying with the species of the cotton, with the water available, and also with the kind of soil we are growing. So, there are 2-3 important variables which affect the rate of nitrogen application to the cotton crop. So, responses up to 240 to 320 kg nitrogen per hectare have been obtained in hybrids under irrigated conditions in Gujarat. So, some cases you can go up to a very high level of nitrogen application where response can be achieved. In upland crops in the semi-arid tropics, about 20 to 50% of fertilizer nitrogen is taken up by the crop and nearly 1/3 is immobilized and rest is lost by various mechanisms. So you can see how the cotton crop can use the nitrogen. Definitely use efficiency is less than 50%. Some of it is getting mobilized by the soil microbes and remaining nitrogen is lost by different mechanisms like ammonia volatilization, leaching or denitrification, and also there can be some loss of nitrogen in the runoff, the water which goes away from the field at the time of rainfall. Then what can be done? Certain fertilizer or modified fertilizer material can be tried, like nitrification inhibitors, coated urea product have been tried, such as gypsum coated urea or split application of nitrogen, and foliar supplementation have been found to be effective in increasing the nitrogen use efficiency. Application of nitrogen in 3 or 4 equal splits at sowing 20, 45, 60 to 90 days after sowing significantly improved cotton yields. So in this case you can see at least we can go for split application of nitrogen in cotton to increase nitrogen use efficiency. Increased nitrogen use efficiency means production of more seed cotton per unit of nitrogen applied. So here split application can be done at sowing, 20 days after sowing, 45 and 60 to 90 days after sowing of cotton crop. Now coming to the phosphorus management, the earlier improved varieties had low phosphorus requirement, but with time present day high yielding varieties respond significantly to phosphorus application. Now we need to apply phosphorus to the cotton crop at least in recommended quantities. In most of the studies where a response to phosphorus has been observed, 30 to 20 kg phosphorus per hectare has been found adequate for both varieties as well as for hybrids. So you can see the range 13 to 20 kg. That means lower range or lower dose can be for varieties, say 13 to 50 kilogram, 15 kilogram phosphorus per hectare, and can be higher side for the hybrids like say 15 to 20 kilogram phosphorus per hectare for hybrids. Now potassium management in cotton. So most cotton growing soils are medium to high in potassium, particularly available potassium, and despite high K requirement, response to K application has been low or inconsistent. Means we still do not have universal response to fertilizer potassium application, as some of the soils where cotton is grown may be medium to high in potassium. Under those conditions, there may not be response to applied K. Cotton grown in north zone on alluvial sandy loam responded to K application as compared to the central and southern zones. That means these soils must have been low in potassium, like alluvial sandy loam soils in northern states. So here one is getting response to the potassium application, but not in southern zones or central zones. On vertizoles of central and south zone with higher available K, the response is of smaller magnitude, not much response is there. The requirement of potassium is high during the ball formation stage and uptake is limited during this phase, because during ball formation stage, the organic materials, the carbohydrates, the photosynthetes or dry matter is mobilized towards the ball formation, and during this potassium is necessary because it is directly involved in the potassium metabolism and transport. Thus, K application increases the ball size, ball yields. Foliar application of potassium can also be done at the rate of 2% KCl at weekly or 10 days interval is employed to meet the additional K requirement, especially late in the season. So sometimes this potassium, foliar nutrition of potassium can be useful. Now we go to the management of secondary nutrients, particularly calcium, magnesium and sulfur. So in all these three, sulfur is more important. Coming to the calcium and magnesium, they do not constrain cotton productivity. Since cotton is grown on soils having pH 6.5 to 8.5. So such kind of soils already have sufficient levels of calcium and magnesium. Most of the situation, acid soils means say pH is less than 5.5 or 5, then those soils will lack calcium and magnesium. However, excess exchangeable calcium leads to magnesium deficiency resulting in leaf reddening. So in some cases there can be excess accumulation of calcium in the soil which can lead to reduced availability of magnesium in the soil, and one can experience the magnesium deficiency in cotton crop. A foliar spray of magnesium sulfate 1% is recommended as a corrective measure. In case if your soil have excess calcium or there is deficiency of magnesium, then foliar spraying can also be done to meet out the magnesium requirement. So 1% solution of magnesium sulfate at the rate of 500 liter per hectare can be sprayed to correct the magnesium deficiency. In intensively cultivated north zone, sulfur is becoming a yield limiting factor, and a response to sulfur has been found in recent years. So sulfur can be lost by crop uptake, it can be lost by leaching also. So then we need to apply it back. This is primarily due to the use of non-sulfur containing fertilizer such as urea and DAP. Now farmers are using less and lesser use of single superphosphate which used to supply sulfur to the crops. So application of 10 to 20 kg sulfur is sufficient to meet the sulfur needs of cotton. Sulfur can be applied as gypsum, superphosphate or elemental sulfur. So it is always advisable to go for gypsum goes to supply sulfur from the gypsum because it is a cheaper source and sulfur is in sulfate form. If you want to apply sulfur from elemental sulfur, then it should be used at least 1 month before its sowing of the crop. Now coming to the micronutrients, in micronutrients zinc, iron and manganese are important. So zinc deficiency symptoms also called as little leaf disease of cotton. It is because of zinc deficiency. Zinc sulfate is now included as a part of the fertilizer recommendation in Rajasthan, Punjab, Andhra and Gujarat. Iron and manganese deficiencies could occur in the calcareous soils due to the presence of excess calcium and magnesium. So micronutrient deficiencies can be corrected by soil application of salts of micronutrients or sulfate salt as foliar spray. For example, for zinc you can use zinc sulfate. For iron, iron sulfate or ferrous sulfate can be used. Similarly, to supply manganese, we can use manganese sulfate. So sulfates are better source to supply these micronutrients. Systemic multi-location trials conducted under technology mission on cotton indicated consistent yield increases ranging from 221 to 514 kg seed cotton per hectare with the application of micronutrients. So now they should be used based upon soil test. Application of zinc and boron also increase the recovery and use efficiency of primary nutrients. So there has to be some supplementation or application of the micronutrients to make balanced fertilization. If 1 or 2 nutrients are missing, then they will affect the utilization of other nutrients as well. Law of minimum operates or come into picture. So therefore, application of adequate dose of micronutrients is also necessary. Boron plays a significant role in fertilization, flowering and fiber development, and its deficiency increases the ball shedding. There are sporadic report of response to foliar spray of 0.1 to 0.2% borax on coarse texture soils of Andhra Pradesh and Punjab. Now general fertilizer recommendations for the cotton crop, you can see for Punjab variety because recommendations are different for variety and also for the hybrid. So you can see under irrigated conditions fertilizer dose in terms of N, P2O5, K2O kg per hectare. This is in kg per hectare. So for Punjab, for variety 75-30-0, drill full dose of phosphorus at last plowing, nitrogen in two equal split at sowing and at flower initiation. For hybrid and irrigated condition, 150-30-0. Here there is no potassium. Next is for Haryana state, hirsutum is the cotton, and for variety under irrigated condition, 80-100-30, 80 to 100 nitrogen, 30 phosphorus, 0 potassium. Full P should be used basal, and nitrogen in two equal splits, sowing and flowering for varieties. For arboreum variety and irrigated condition, 50-30-0. For hybrid and irrigated condition, nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium all are increased, 150-60-60 and 25 kg zinc sulfate heptahydrate per hectare. The zinc sulfate heptahydrate contains about 21% zinc. Next is for Rajasthan, arboreum is the cotton or hirsutum and varieties under irrigated condition, 80-20-0. Full P basal, nitrogen in two equal splits, sowing and first fortnight of August with irrigation. For hybrids in Rajasthan under irrigated condition, 150-40-20 and 12 kg zinc sulfate. For Gujarat state, hybrid and irrigated, 240 and 0. No potassium here. The full dose of phosphorus basal, nitrogen in 5 equal splits, because dose is quite high and productivity is also quite high in Gujarat. So 30 days after sowing, 60, 75, 90 and 150 days after sowing should be used in Gujarat. For hybrid rain-fed condition, 80-40-0. For herbaceous rain-fed, 80-00. Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh hybrid irrigated condition, 100-50-50. Full P and K basal and nitrogen in 3 equal splits at sowing, 30 days after emergence and 60 days after emergence for irrigated hybrids, and nitrogen in 2 equal split at sowing and squaring for rain-fed hybrids and variety. So you can see that the time, method and dose of application of different fertilizer nutrients is varying with the state, it is varying with the cotton species, varying whether it is variety or hybrid, and it is also varying with the availability of water, whether it is irrigated or rain-fed. So lot of variations in recommendations for fertilizer. For Maharashtra, MP continues hybrid rain-fed condition 80-40-40 or 90-45-45. For hirsutum and variety and rain-fed condition 60-30-30. Arboreum variety and rain-fed 50-25-25 or 40-20-20. For Andhra Pradesh, hybrid irrigated 120-60-40. Hybrid irrigated rice fallows 150-60-60. Hirsutum variety and irrigated 90-45-45 and so on. Now for Karnataka, H into H hybrids, irrigated condition, this is intra-hirsutum hybrids, 120-60-60. Under irrigated conditions, full dose of P as basal, N and K in 3 splits, half at sowing, 1/4 30 days after sowing, 1/4 60 days after sowing, or it can be used in 4 equal splits at sowing, 50, 80 and 110 days after sowing. For Tamil Nadu, for example, it is for hybrid H into H, irrigated condition 120-60-60. The full dose of P basal, N and K in 3 equal splits. So this is likewise we now go for water management in this crop after the general fertilizer recommendation. So this is water management for rain-fed crop. Most of the area under cotton is rain-fed, means out of 100 units, 70 units of area of cotton in India are rain-fed and remaining 30% is irrigated. So rain-fed crop frequently suffers from prolonged drought spells and times excess rains. The water requirement of cotton under Nagpur condition is about 939.8 millimeter, and most of it is received through the soil moisture reserves. The deficit in rain can be compensated by providing supplemental irrigation, because we are not sure under rain-fed condition to get the rains regularly. So if there is arrangement for life-saving irrigation or supplementation irrigation, then it should be used and it helps in increasing the yields. Excess rainfall received and lost through runoff can be harvested into ponds and it can be recycled easily. And it is a widely spaced crop, so one can go for micro irrigation also that can increase the productivity and water use efficiency. Particularly drip system of irrigation can be useful in cotton. Field studies conducted at Central Institute of Cotton Research have shown that the benefits of providing life-saving irrigation are always there. And flowering and boll development are the critical stages for soil moisture. So, a student can remember these two stages. They are critical for water management or critical for moisture, flowering and boll development. For irrigated crop, how to manage the water? About 97% of cotton area in north and 43% in the south are irrigated. Canals are the main source of irrigation besides lift irrigation. Pre-plant irrigation is necessary in north zone, particularly for increasing the germination percentage as it is sown during the summer month of say April, May. So therefore, pre-sowing irrigation is necessary. Pre-plant irrigations are also preferred because it lowers the soil temperature. So there are many purposes of pre-sowing irrigations. Then irrigation scheduling, the main purpose of irrigation scheduling is to ensure that water is available in the sufficient quantities. And then in the drier parts of Maharashtra, BT cotton hybrids needed 3 irrigation at square, flower and boll development stages. During later growth phase, irrigation have to be cut and prolonged irrigation delays mature boll opening. Now we go to the straightway to the weed management. As we know that weed causes loss in quality and quantity of the cotton. In northern cotton wheat regions, the major weeds are Trianthema species, Echinoclea species, Digeria arvensis and Cypress species. In the southern zone, the predominant weeds are Trianthema portulaca castrum and Cynodon dactylan. Some water-loving weeds are there like Portulaca oleracea, T. portula castrum and E. cruzgelli. In central region, Celosia argentina, Cyanotis axillaris, Digitaria sanguinalis, Denebra retraflexa, Euphorbia species. Number of weeds are there. Hand weeding and intercultural operations are predominant method of weed control. So they are useful. Use of herbicide is limited under Indian conditions. Presently, effective herbicides are available and can be used. So overall, better way to control the weeds in cotton is to go for integrated weed management, where hoeing operations can be combined with the pest chemical use or herbicide use. And all kind of preventive measures should be followed. Certain cultural practices should be followed. Mechanical measures should be adopted, and all should be combined to control the weeds in this crop. So herbicides are definitely useful in black soils, where most often weed control is delayed because of the soil conditions. The black clay soils are sticky when wet and hard. A delay in weed control seriously affects the crop yields. The first 8 weeks of crop growth are most sensitive or critical for weeds. The competition varies with the species and plant densities. The use of pre-emergence herbicides takes care of weeds during the first 2 months. Weed control during the later stage can be done by hand weeding or intercultural operation, means both can be combined. Combination of pre and post emergence herbicide at 30 and 60 days after sowing effectively controls the weeds. Pre-emergence herbicide recommended are fluchlorelin 1 kg AI per hectare. The doses would vary according to the soil type. Effective post-emergent herbicides are quizalofob ethyl 0.05 kg AI per hectare, and there are many more herbicides that you can find the list. And pyrithiobacter sodium, which is called as staple, is also a good source, a good herbicide that can control, and number of herbicides are coming up. This is the list of recommended herbicides for cotton with their doses and kind of weed that can be controlled by these herbicides. So for example, Alachlor 50 EC, it can be used as pre-emergence. The rate of application is 2 to 2.5 kg AI per hectare. Similarly, Elachlor 10% GR, the rate of application is 2 to 2.5 kg AI per hectare. Then diuron can be used 80% WP as pre-emergence to control many weeds, and rate of application is 0.75 to 1.5 kg AI per hectare. Then phenoxaprop P-ethyl can be used. The rate is 67.5 gram. Low dose herbicide, very low quantity is used. And then fluchlorelin 45% EC, pre-plant incorporation 0.9 to 1.2 kg AI per hectare. Then there are many more. Pendimethalin is there, and then you can see quizalofop ethyl. It is used as 50.5 gram AI per hectare. Again, low dose herbicide. So number of pre-emergence and post-emergence herbicides are available to control weeds in cotton. Overall, what is suggested here is that farmers or producers should go for integrated management of weeds in this crop. Dear students, I hope that you enjoyed this lecture. Thank you very much.